Ladies and gentlemen, it's football time in Tennessee. Welcome to Chronocord Sports. Coming to you from up on good old Rocky Top, I am C-Dub, joined by my co-host JC. JC, this should be a landmark year for the Volunteers, as Butch Jones has his team number 119 motivated and ready to compete in the SEC.
No doubt, C-Dub. Coach Butch Jones has been stacking up 4- and 5-star recruits for the Vols since arriving in Knoxville with consecutive top 5 recruiting classes. Fresh off of a 7-6 season in 2014, quarterback Joshua Dobbs and the rest of this year's football Vols have Tennessee fans buzzing, with Tennessee ranked 25th in the preseason coaches poll.
The sports media is convinced that our Vols will be a major threat in the SEC this year, always one of the toughest conferences in the NCAA. Let's take a look at some of the key players for this year's Vols squad. As previously mentioned, the 2015 Peyton Manning Leadership Award winner from the spring orange and white inter-squad game, starting quarterback from Alpharetta, Georgia, Joshua Dobbs. An aerospace engineering major, Dobbs started 5 of his 6 appearances in his 2014 sophomore season, going 4-1 with 1,675 total yards of offense and 17 touchdowns, 8 of which were rushing, leading the Vols for the season. Dobbs was named MVP in the Tax Slayer Bowl, leading Tennessee to a 45-28 win over Iowa, and posting up 205 yards of total offense with 3 touchdowns.
That was a very impressive win. Joshua is a very bright young man in the classroom and on the field. He has been putting in the effort to become a better passer this offseason, and with a plethora of talent around him, will have his job made easier than ever. Coach Butch Jones said, when asked about Joshua Dobbs' progress this offseason, quote, "Consistency with leadership, throwing the football, getting us in the right plays, taking care of the football, understanding down and distance, all of the things that go into playing winning football at the quarterback position. That's what we expect. Josh has done a good job with that," end quote.
Dobbs will be looking to connect with receivers Marquez North, Vaughn Pearson, and Alton Pig Howard. Sophomore Josh Malone and junior Jason Kroom should see some passes thrown their way as well. The Vols have a pair of brothers at the tight end position, Ethan and Eli Wolf of Minster, Ohio. Ethan is likely to be one of the breakout players from this season.
The Volunteers' backfield has seen a vast improvement since last season. According to Coach Butch Jones, quote, "Probably the biggest difference is the running back position right now. When you add individuals like Jalen Hurd, Alvin Kamara, and then John Kelly, Joe Young, and Ralph David Abernathy IV, you're creating some depth, but also some competition. As we know, you can never have enough running backs," end quote.
Despite that perceived depth at the position, Vols fans can expect Jalen Hurd to be the centerpiece of the running game, with Alvin Kamara as the spellback and an important motivator of the offense. Hurd played in 13 games in his 2014 freshman season, starting 9 games and leading the Vols on the ground with 190 carries for 899 yards and 5 touchdowns. Jalen rushed for 100 yards 4 times versus Georgia, South Carolina, Kentucky, and against Iowa in the Tax Slayer Bowl, the most 100-yard rushing games by a true freshman since Jamal Lewis's 7 in 1997. Hurd also had 35 catches for 221 yards with 2 receiving touchdowns, and will be a target for Joshua Dobbs again in 2015.
The Vols' offensive line will be one of, if not the biggest question marks going into this season. Team 119's O-linemen are an experienced unit, battle-tested these past few seasons. Coach Jones says he has not yet nailed down the starting front 5, but is pleased with the stability and growth shown on the field by all of his offensive linemen this offseason.
On the other side of the ball, the Volunteer defense is led by number 56, senior linebacker Kurt Magid, who was 3rd in the SEC last season in sacks with a team best 11, and tied for 5th in tackles for loss with 15. Junior linebacker Jalen Reeves-Maybin had 7 tackles for loss in a single game in 2014, 8 in another, and finished the year tied for most total tackles. With A.J. Johnson gone, this is Jalen's year to shine.
The Volunteers were second in the SEC on third down defense last season, and this year's defensive line should be vastly improved, with 7 of the 8 defensive linemen returning, including established threats Derek Barnett, Owen Williams, and Corey Vereen, and a number 2 ranked defensive line recruit in the nation in Khalil McKenzie, likely to make a splash immediately in Knoxville. The future is looking bright in the trenches.
Taking a look at the schedule for 2015, the Vols open the season September 5th at Nissan Stadium in Nashville against the Bowling Green Falcons. Though Nashville is a 2-hour drive west from Knoxville, it might as well be a home game for Tennessee. A loss here is highly unlikely.
The first big test in 2015 comes September 12th, as the Vols take on the Oklahoma Sooners for the first time in history at Neyland Stadium. Junior quarterback Trevor Knight will lead a game-ready, ranked Sooners squad into Knoxville in what should be an evenly contested game. Too close to call on this one, W.
I agree. The homer in me says Tennessee will defeat Oklahoma, but I'm not getting my hopes up just yet. In their third game, the Vols will be taking on the Western Carolina Catamounts. I don't expect this to be a difficult win for the Vols, and I hope for them to pick up their 3rd straight win here against WCU.
Sorry, Catamount fans. One of the most important games for the Vols comes on September 26th as they head to the Swamp in Gainesville to take on the Florida Gators. After the departure of Will Muschamp, new head coach Jim McElwain hopes to continue the Gators' 10-year winning streak against Tennessee. Florida has a talented roster of returning players, but I don't believe it will be enough to defeat the Vols for an 11th straight year.
I agree. Tennessee takes the W after a closely matched game in the first half that gets out of hand for the Gators in the second. In recent years, the Florida game has surpassed that of other historic rivalry matchups, and a win for the Vols at Ben Hill Griffin in September will be a huge motivation going forward.
On October 3rd, the Arkansas Razorbacks travel to Neyland Stadium to face the Vols. Senior running back Jonathan Williams will not take the field against Tennessee, sidelined by foot surgery. Junior running back Alex Collins will need to step up as a cornerstone of the Razorbacks offense, alongside senior Brandon Allen, who threw 20 touchdowns to only 5 interceptions last season. Allen averaged just 175 yards per game, however, not too impressive. The Vols defense will be the deciding factor here, locking up a win.
Saturday, October 10th, will see the Georgia Bulldogs travel north to take on the Vols in what should be one of the key matchups of the year for Tennessee. The Dogs are picked by many sports journalists to win the SEC East this season, and they will field a team full of talented weapons going into this one. I expect this to be a consecutive 6th-year win for the Bulldogs, bringing the all-time series record to 23 wins for Georgia, 22 for Tennessee, and 2 ties.
I'm going to have to disagree with you, C-Dub. They nearly defeated Georgia last season, with the Dogs taking the win in the final minutes by only 3 points. This will be a newly rejuvenated, awakened Tennessee squad, not the same team we saw last year. Pair that with the departure of star running back Todd Gurley, who was the deciding factor in last year's contest, and this could very well be a win for the Vols.
I hope you're right, man. Georgia will be an imposing hurdle for the Volunteers to clear, going into a week off October 17th, and coming right back on the 24th on the road in Tuscaloosa against the Crimson Tide, led by head coach Nick Saban. The Tide have never lost to the Vols under Saban, but I think this year, Saban and his team will take on the most talented Vols squad seen in a decade or more. I do expect Alabama to win this one, but not without a valiant fight from Butch and company.
Never say never, C-Dub. I expect the Vols to put up quite a battle against Alabama. And following that, on Halloween, the Vols head to Commonwealth Stadium in Lexington to face the Kentucky Wildcats. It should be a sure victory, with Tennessee improving to 78 wins, 24 losses, and 9 ties, all time against their neighbors to the north. The Wildcats will be led by 6'5", 240-pound junior quarterback Patrick Towles and third-year head coach Mark Stoops. Despite improvements to their team, it will not be enough to top the Vols this year.
In the words of Al Borland, I don't think so, Tim. Tennessee takes on the Spurrier-led South Carolina Gamecocks at home in their first game of November, in what could be a hot seat year for the old head ball coach. Tennessee defeated South Carolina 2 years in a row, and in my estimation, will make it a third. November 14th is the homecoming game for the Volunteers, taking on the North Texas Mean Green. This should be a paint-by-numbers win for Tennessee, giving them a comfortable enough lead late in the game to rest some players, going into another tough road matchup against Mizzou on November 21st.
The Vols travel to Columbia to take on the Tigers, who are led by quarterback Matty Mock, who is 14-4 as a starter over the last 2 seasons. He finished with 25 touchdowns against 13 interceptions last season, despite a midseason slump. This will be a very tough game for the Vols on the road late in their season. If they remain healthy at key positions and bring the fight to Mizzou early in their own house, Tennessee could score a big road win here.
The Tigers have a young squad, much like the Tennessee team of last year, and Gary Pinkel's team will be tough to pick against in a home game. Running back Russell Hansbrough must be kept under wraps by the Vol defense if they want to get their first win in school history versus Missouri. Tennessee will close their regular season November 28th against Vanderbilt at Neyland Stadium. Vandy has only defeated Tennessee 5 times since 1975. Coach Derek Mason will be without wide receiver C.J. Duncan, who recently sustained a leg injury that will cause him to miss the entire season. I don't expect the Commodores to pull off an upset against their interstate rival.
Nor do I, C-Dub. We're looking at a Tennessee team here who could easily have a 10-win season and be in contention for the SEC championship at the Georgia Dome in Atlanta on December 5th. And I don't think Vanderbilt will stop that train from rolling. This will be a great year for Tennessee football fans as the sleeping giant awakens, and the Vols hopefully make their long-awaited return to being one of the many powerhouse schools in the Southeastern Conference.
Thanks for joining us here at Chronocord Sports, where we are all Vol. Be sure to stay tuned for more coverage of Tennessee Volunteers football by clicking the subscribe button below the video. Drop us a comment and let us know your picks for the SEC this year. For my co-host JC, I'm C-Dub. Go Big Orange. See ya up on Rocky Top.